we had done question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4. So we are going to have a recording. We are going to have a recording of our lesson today. And then the recorded class can be shared to you later. We had done question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4 as well. So we are remaining with question number 5, question number 6, and question number 7 as far as the April 2022 sitting is concerned. And we go straight to question number 5A, highlight 5 uses of social media applications. Highlight 5 uses of social media applications in business communication, some 5 marks there. Highlight 5 uses of social media applications in business communication, some 5 marks. So, you know, the use of social media to market your business and connect. We use social media basically to do what? To market our business and to connect with our customers, or businesses do use social media to market their businesses and to connect with their what? To connect with their customers. Social media itself, by definition, this is an online communication. It's an online communication that allows you to interact with your customers and share information in real time. And we can use, you know, different social media platforms that are available, whether it is Facebook, whether it is WhatsApp, you know, or any other social media platform that is available, whether it is, you know, a web-based, you know, online communication like Google Meet, the likes of webinar, the likes of Zoom that we're using, and many other, you know, platforms that are available to do what? To share a lot of information with our customers or to communicate specific information to our customers. So what are the benefits of social media for businesses, or what do businesses stand out to benefit with the use of social media applications? Number 1, you can say that social media can help your business, number 1, to attract customers, get customer feedback, and build customer loyalty. Number 1, social media can help your business to attract customers, get customer feedback, and build customer loyalty. 2, it increases your market reach, including international markets. It increases your market reach, including international markets. It increases your market reach, including international markets. Number 3, social media can help your business to do market research and reduce marketing costs. Can help your business to do market research and reduce market costs, or rather marketing costs. It also helps your business to increase revenue by building customer networks and advertising. It helps a business to increase revenue by building customer networks and advertising. It increases revenue by building customer networks and advertising. The other one is that it can help a business to build, to develop a brand, or to develop your brand as a business. It can help to exchange ideas, to improve the way you do business, can help exchange ideas to improve the way you do business, The other one is that it can help recruit skilled staff, For example, through job networking sites, can help recruit skilled staff, for example, through job networking sites like LinkedIn, LinkedIn is LINKEDIN, LinkedIn. The other one is that social media can help your business to increase traffic to your website and improve in search engine ranking. Can help increase traffic to your website and improve its search engine ranking. Can help increase traffic to your website and improve its search engine ranking. And then lastly, social media can help your business to keep an eye on your competitors. Social media can help your business, to keep an eye on your competitors. So those are some of the uses. Those are some of the uses of social media applications in business communication, right? And you can look at them as the benefits or the advantages of using social media, in business communication. Of course, there are negatives. There are negatives of social media. An examiner can ask you to talk about the negative effects or the disadvantages, for that matter, of social media, in business communication. You can also be able to do what? You can also be able to answer a question of that nature. Part B, Roman 1, explain the meaning of the term memorandum. Explain the meaning of the term memorandum. We discussed this in the topic writing skills, written communication for that matter. A memorandum, commonly known as memo or shortened as a memo, is one type of written communication that is in most cases used in internal communication. And you can say that it is used to communicate something of immediate importance to people within a business or organization. It is a document used to communicate. It is a document used to communicate, or you can say that it is a form of written communication used to communicate something of immediate importance to people within a business organization. It is used to communicate something of immediate importance to people within a business or organization. A memo also can be sent to people or firms. A memo can also be sent to people or firms that have a close or long-standing relationships, such as vendors and consultants, So we use a memo to do what? To communicate different information, right? Being a form of written communication, a form of formal written communication, there is a format or a structure that ought to be followed in preparing this memo, right? And some of these guidelines, they are those that are standard. We are talking about standardized guidelines that are, can be used in different business environments, and there are those that are specific or unique to a given organization. The memo can be able to communicate the following information. Number one, announce or confirm a meeting or event. Number two, provide instructions, provide a status report on a project, request feedback or recommendations, summarize action required after meeting, clarify or change a policy or a procedure, distribute minutes or handouts from a meeting or event, notify others of a problem or that a problem was resolved, and provide a short report of an event or a decision. A memo is capable of communicating all this within and outside the organization. So part B, you are supposed to outline 3 purposes of a new memorandum. The purposes of a new memorandum. So like we have said, the memorandum is a note or a record for future use. And for an organization, it is very important to have an efficient way of communication. It is an intra-office, across offices. That is what intra-office here means, intra-office tool, and it has a number of purposes. Number one, the purpose of a memo could be to inform the staff in an organization about something, about a new policy, about a new guideline that is being introduced in an organization. The purpose of a memo can be to inquire. The other purpose can be to report, to use it to report. One can use it to report. One can use a memo to report. The other one is that one, can use a memo to give suggestions. We can use memos to give suggestions. We can use memos to remind. We can use it to instruct. We can use a memo also to promote goodwill, right? We can also use a memo, lastly, to communicate what? To communicate the ideas. Of course, you understand the different parts of a memo, that format of a memo. Somebody can also ask you to do what? To talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of a memo. And you also need to do what? To be aware of the important points to remember in preparing a memo, the important points to prepare, or rather to remember in preparing a memo. Then part C, describe the 5 steps of the listening process. Explain the 5 steps of the listening process. The listening process, we are saying that it is essential to successful public speaking. It is essential, characteristic of what? Of successful public speaking. And it involves 5 key stages: receiving, understanding, evaluating, remembering, and responding. So before we maybe explain each of those stages of the listening process, the objective here is to understand why the listening process is very important, in making public speaking successful. Is important in making public speaking successful. Why is it an important skill for public speaking, right? Listening is a skill of critical significance in all aspects of our lives, from maintaining our personal relationships, to getting our jobs done, to taking notes in class, to figuring out which bus to take to the airport, for example, right? And so many other things where communication, especially verbal communication, is involved. Listening is a very, very important skill. It's a very, very important skill. And listening here again determines whether you are going to do what? To understand what is being communicated or not. So to be a successful listener, it is important to understand that listening involves more than just hearing the words that are directed to us. Listening is an active process by which we make sense of and respond to what we hear. And it involves the following 5 stages. We can explain each one of them, the stages of listening process. Number 1, the receiving stage. Number 1 is the receiving stage. It involves, you can note that it involves hearing and attending. It involves hearing and attending. It involves hearing and attending. Hearing is a physiological process. Hearing is the physiological process of registering sound waves as they hit the eardrum, right? Well, as obvious as it may seem, in order to effectively gather information from listening, we must first of all be able to do what? To physically hear what, what we are listening to. There's a difference between listening and hearing, right? Each and every person, unless you have a problem with your ears, you are able to do what? You are able to hear what is being said, but then listening may be a different thing altogether. Because listening here, you must be able to do what? You must be able to understand or to comprehend what is being communicated, right? So if, for example, we have a hearing impairment, our ability to listen will be challenged. Excessive noise, for example, from the environment or from the surrounding, right? Excessive noise can create obstacles to receiving audible sound what? Sound waves. And then number 2, we have what we call the understanding stage. That is the second stage in the listening process. Understanding stage. That the understanding stage is the stage during which the listener determines the context and the meanings of the words that are heard through a process called decoding. Understanding stage is the stage during which the listener determines the context and the meanings of the words that are heard through a process called decoding. Understanding or comprehension occurs when the listener's determination of the context and the meanings of the words matches the speaker's message. One tactic for better understanding a speaker's meaning is to ask questions to fill in any holes or gaps that you may have in a mental reconstruction of the speaker's what? The speaker's message. So understanding is a very key, aspect of the listening what? Of the listening process. So here, as a listener, you try to determine the context and the meaning of the words that are being heard through a process called decoding. The elements of, a communication process, right? Decoding is the opposite of encoding. Encoding, we said, is where before you communicate, of course, is you think about what you want to communicate. You try to imagine or to think about what you want to communicate. But now you want to translate that thought, that idea that is in your mind into a message that the recipient or the other person expected to receive the message can be able to do what? Can be able to understand, right? And then now, as a recipient, if it is, a presentation that you are making before an audience, while you are, mentioning those words in the process of communicating, the members of your audience are trying, to do what? To do the decoding of the message that you're trying to do what? To communicate, for them to be able to do what? To have a better understanding. And we said that for communication to be effective, your intended meaning as the sender of the message, right, should be the same meaning that the recipient is also doing what? Should be the same meaning that the recipient is also getting from the decoding or as a result of decoding, right? For you to do what? For you to be reading from the same page. And then number 3, there's the evaluating stage. The evaluating stage or the evaluation stage. This stage of the listening process is the one during which the listener assesses the information they received. This stage of the listening process is the one during which the listener assesses the information they received, both qualitatively and quantitatively. This stage of the listening process is the one during which the listener assesses the information they received, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Evaluating allows the listener to form an opinion of what they heard, and if necessary, to begin developing a response. Evaluating allows the listener to form an opinion of what they heard, and if necessary, to begin developing a response. Evaluating allows the listener to form an opinion of what they heard, and if necessary, to begin developing a response. The evaluating stage occurs most effectively once the listener fully understands what the speaker is trying to say. Having a clear understanding of a speaker's message allows a listener to do what? To evaluate the message without getting bogged down in ambiguities or spending unnecessary time and the energy addressing points that may be, otherwise non-essential, may otherwise be non-essential. So the evaluating stage is the third stage of the listening process. And it involves the listener here assessing the information that they have received, both qualitatively and quantitatively. We said that, one of the principles of effective communication is that when you are communicating, when you are making a communication, make sure that you don't give too much information, for example, than what is needed, or do not give too little information than what is expected, right? Just give what is enough. Just give information that is enough to the recipient. And evaluating here allows the listener to form an opinion after you have done what? You have listened to the message that has been communicated. You can be able now to do what? To evaluate that particular message that has been communicated. And this involves now forming an opinion. Of course, you are going to form an opinion which can be negative or positive, depending on what you've had. And if necessary, then you can begin the process of developing what? You can begin the process of developing a response. Then number 4, there is the remembering stage. The remembering stage. That in the listening process, the remembering stage occurs as the listener categorizes and retains the information he or she has gathered from the speaker for future what? Has gathered from the speaker for future access, has gathered, from the speaker for future access. And if the listener has been attending, understanding, and evaluating, chances are the result will be stored memory, allowing the listener to record information about people, objects, and events for later recall. This happens both during and after the speaker's delivery. This happens both during and after the speaker's delivery. So the remembering stage is also very important, right? You cannot be able to remember, for example, what has been communicated if you are not doing what? If you are not listening, right? If you did not understand what was communicated, if, probably you did not form an opinion of what was communicated, it may be difficult for you to be able to recall or to remember, anything or any information that was communicated. If the listener has been attending, understanding, and evaluating, chances are the result will be stored in the memory. That is what we are saying. And allowing the listener to record information about people, objects, and events for later what? For later recall or retrieval, if you like. And this happens both during and after the speaker's what? The speaker's delivery. And then lastly, number 5, the responding stage. The responding stage. The responding stage. It is the stage of the listening process, right? In which the listener provides verbal and or non-verbal reactions, in which the speaker provides verbal and or non-verbal reactions based on short or long-term memory, based on short or long-term memory, based on short or long-term memory. And the non-verbal responses such as nodding or eye contact allow the listener to communicate his or her level of interest without interrupting the speaker, thereby preserving the speaker or listener roles, And when the speaker responds verbally to what they hear and remember, for example, with a question or a comment, the speaker or listener roles are reversed, at least momentarily. So the responding stage is the idea of, being able or in a position to give what? To give a feedback. And the feedback here can be in form of what? In form of a comment, in form of a question, right? You're trying here basically to provide verbal or non-verbal reactions based on the short-term or long-term what? Based on the short-term or long-term memory, based on what you've gotten from the presentation that has been made or the information that has been communicated. So non-verbal responses such as nodding your head, or an eye contact allows the listener to communicate his or a level of interest without interrupting the speaker. That is basically during the presentation, thereby preserving the speaker or listener roles. Those are the 5 what? Those are the 5 stages of the. Those are the 5 stages of the listening process, and that is how you are supposed to approach that particular question. And then you have your, how many marks? You have your 20 marks. You have your 20 marks, and then question number 6. Question number 6. Question number 6 is summarize 6 features of a good business proposal. Summarize 6 features of a good business proposal. A business proposal, first of all, we said is a document that is used to do what? To present your value proposition, how the product or service you sell can be useful to a client. And the purpose of a business proposal is to show the benefits of your product or service to your client in the best way possible and convince them to take a decision, of course, in your what? To take a decision, in your favor. So the question here, is asking about the what? Is asking about the features of a good proposal. The features of a good proposal. Features here are, characteristics. Features are characteristics. So we are looking at the characteristics of a good business proposal. Number 1, it should have a well-stated definition of the problem. It should have a well-stated definition of the problem, right? And then when we talk about a well-stated definition of the problem, we are talking about the description of the problem itself, the causes of the problem, and the consequences should the problem remain what? Remain unsolved. That is one basic feature of a proposal. Number 2, it should have a clearly it should have a clearly stated proposal to solve a problem, right? Your proposal may be about a given problem in an organization, right? And, we are looking at how you can be able to address that particular problem, which are some of the measures that can be adopted in trying to do what? To address or to solve that particular problem. So your proposal should have this, a clearly stated proposal to solve the problem. So with this, we are looking at the arguments in the favor of your solution, right? These are solutions that we are trying to do what? To propose on how a given problem or issue can be addressed in an organization. And we are looking at the arguments, of course, in the favor of your solution. And then we are also looking at some hints as how to implement the what? To implement the solution. Number 3, it should have or create or rather provide awareness of alternative proposals, right? It should bring about awareness of alternative what? Alternative proposals. Other than the possible solution, other than the solution that you're trying to do what? To propose as a way of trying to address the current problem, the problem that you're trying to solve. Are there alternative methods that you can be able to propose as a way of trying to address the problem? So here we are looking at alternative solutions to the problem and acceptance of refutation of each alternative solution. Number 4, an evaluation of the benefits of your proposal. It should have an evaluation of the benefits of your proposal. Here we are looking at the positive effects of your proposal. For example, cost benefits or sustainability, right? We are looking at, of course, in carrying out, in writing what we call a proposal about something, you must have thought or carried out what we call the cost benefit analysis. With the cost benefit analysis, you're looking at the cost, possible cost that is maybe incurred you know, in trying to do what? To solve a given problem in an organization, in addressing a given problem in an organization, and what then the organization should expect in return in terms of benefits. Because, you know, we are looking at here an investment that is being made, and then what we are expecting in return in terms of what? In terms of benefits. And we are also looking at the sustainability of, you know, that proposal that you're trying to make. And then we are also looking at possible counter arguments to your proposal, right? An effective proposal should provide possible counter arguments, right? That is an awareness of possible objections to your proposal that you in turn argue against, right? We should also, or it should also have or provide a careful analysis of your audience. That is the needs, conviction, and the prejudices of, you know, the readers can also be taken into account. The information selected is neither too basic nor too narrow for your audience's knowledge base. And then lastly, number 7, you know, it should have a reasonable, sensible, it should have a reasonable and a sensible tone. That is, irony and sarcasm should be avoided, or we should try to avoid irony and sarcasm, right? Unless it is your specific purpose to be ironic. We should avoid also what we call counter arguments, or we should ensure that counter arguments are fairly and reasonably evaluated without attacking those who disagree with you. And then the appeal is to the intellect rather than to the emotions, although appealing to emotions subtly is likely to be necessary at times as part of persuasive tone. C, persuasive words. C, persuasive writing. Those are some of the features, 6 features of a good business proposals. Explain 6 areas. Part B, explain 6 areas. 6 areas to do what? To be contained, or rather to be included in a formal report. Contents of a formal report is what we are basically looking at. Contents of a formal report. We had discussed this in another topic, known as what? We had discussed this in another topic known as reports and the proposal writing, or proposals and the report writing, right? We had discussed this. So the question is asking about 6. They could be more than 6 depending on which type of report that we are talking about. But then the question here requires you to pick you know, the 6 specific ones, 6 specific ones to a formal what? To a formal report. When we talk about a formal report itself is a document that is used to communicate complex information, issues, and the solutions within an organization, right? It is a document used to communicate complex information, issues, and the solutions within an organization. And this formal report is written in a professional and a formal manner to address complex issues. It may be used to convey information, analyze an issue or a problem, and provide a recommended course of what? A recommended course of action. A recommended course of action. That is basically what a formal report does in an organization. So these are the key items that should be included in a formal report. These are the key items that should be included in a formal report. Number one, a formal report should have the title page, should have the title page. The title page here, of course, is to show what? To show the title of the report, the title of the report itself. It should have the table of contents. However, this is an optional part depending on the length of the report. For example, if you have a 2 to 3 page report, probably a table of content here may not be necessary, maybe compared to a report that has something like 10 to 20 pages. A report should have executive summary, and an executive summary is a brief overview of a report that is designed to give the reader a quick review of the report's contents. And the purpose of the executive summary is to present the key points of a report in one place. After your audience, for example, have gone through the summary, the executive summary, they can be able to understand the main points you are making and your evidence for those points without needing to read your full report. Your report should also have the introductory part, the introduction. The introduction here, we said it should briefly describe the context and the background of the research, describe the change, problem or issue to be reported on, define the specific objectives and the purpose of the report, indicate the overall answer and the problem explored in the report, outline the report's scope, the extent of the investigation, also known as its terms of reference or brief, preview the report structure and a comment on the limitations of the report and any assumptions that are made. Your report should also have a discussion part. Your report should also have a discussion part. And this is the main body of the report, and it has two key purposes. One, to explain the conclusions, and number two, to justify the recommendations. Your report should also have a conclusion, and the conclusion should be arranged so that the major conclusions come first, identify the major issues relating to the case and give you an interpretation of them, related specifically to the objectives of the report as set out in the introduction, be a list of numbered points, follow logically from the facts in the discussion, be clean cut and specific, right? Be clean cut here, it means that you need to be very clear in what your report is trying to do, what to communicate. And then you also need to be very brief. Then your report can have what we call recommendations. Is another part. Your recommendations point to the future, and they should be: one, action oriented, be feasible, be logically related to the discussion and the conclusion, be numbered, and be arranged in order of importance, and the brief be arranged in order of importance and the brief. Your report can also have references where possible. It also needs to have what we call appendices, and appendices here include any essential or extra material, any essential or extra material, such as tables and graphs that support your research but don't relate directly to the discussion of your findings. And then, those are the key elements to include. Those are the key elements to include in a report, a formal report for that matter. And then part C of question 6, discuss 4 steps. Discuss 4 steps that an organization could make to enhance ethical communication. Ethical communication, steps that can be taken to enhance ethical communication. you know, we are basically looking at the principles of ethical what? The principles of ethical communication. What is this ethical communication, first of all? When we talk about ethical communication, it refers to communicating in a manner that is clear, a manner that is concise, a manner that is truthful, and a manner that is, you know, responsible. Ethical communication is communicating in a manner that is clear, a manner that is concise, a manner that is truthful, and a manner that is responsible. You know, different professions have different ethical set of standards that are meant to guide their what? To guide their conduct. You know, there are ethical standards for accountants, ethical standards for teachers, ethical standards for engineers, ethical standards for the medical personnel, and people in many other many other professions. Those ethical standards are basically meant to do what? To guide people working in those areas understand how they are expected to conduct themselves in performing their what? In performing their duties. Ethical communication is communication that is predicated upon certain business values, such as being truthful, concise, and responsible, and being responsible, right? So the question here is asking about the steps that an organization will take to do what? To enhance ethical communication. Or the importance of ethical, really, the steps that an organization will take to enhance ethical communication in organizations. So, number one, develop a code and make ethical performance a strategic priority. Develop a code and make ethical communication, or ethical performance rather, ethical performance a strategic priority. The other one is engage, communicate, and train your staff. Engage, communicate, and train your staff about ethical communication. About ethical communication. The other one is provide correct and complete information. Provide correct and complete information. Provide correct and complete information. You know, by this we are saying that withholding, for example, crucial information can damage business relationships and, you know, public image of the company. And therefore, information is important, and the proper information should be provided to all stakeholders, be it clients, customers, or employees. So we need to lay down rules. We have mentioned that we need to lay down rules, coming up with a policy or a guideline. Having a well-defined ethical system within an organization helps, lets people know the ethical issues are taken seriously by an organization, including communication, and this will instill awareness towards ethical questions. And as a result, there will be less chances of going wrong if policies towards critical issues like ethics are laid down in black and white. Uphold human rights. Uphold human rights. By this, we are saying that ethical communication is not just about providing correct and accurate information. It is also about keeping in mind human rights and upholding human dignity and the freedom of speech and sensitivity towards social issues like women's equality, child abuse, etc. should be kept in mind while drafting any message. We need also to be culturally sensitive. We need to be culturally sensitive. Being culturally sensitive is also crucial. It helps us to understand and respect the value systems of different what? Of different culture. Of different culture. We can ensure what we call transparency and honesty, understanding your audience, respecting confidentiality and privacy, respecting confidentiality and privacy, choosing the right time and the place, to communicate. All these are steps that can be adopted in an organization to enhance ethical communication. Lastly, question number 7A. Question number 7A. Highlight 4 key elements that should be considered in writing a paragraph. Key elements to be considered in writing a paragraph. We covered these the other time when we were looking at writing skills, the first subtopic in the topic writing skills, sentence and a paragraph development, sentence and a paragraph development, right? So what do you need to consider in writing what? What do you need to consider in writing a paragraph? So the key elements of a paragraph, right? So a good paragraph, number 1, a good paragraph should have unity, it should have coherence, it should have a topic sentence, and should have sufficient what? Should have sufficient development, So when we talk about unity of a paragraph, we are saying that in order for a paragraph to maintain a sense of unity, the paragraph must focus solely on a single idea, right? What we are saying by this is that, or what we mean by this is that each paragraph should be able to communicate one idea, not communicating 2 ideas on a single what? On a single paragraph. So in order for a paragraph to maintain a sense of unity, the paragraph must focus solely on a single idea, point, or argument that is being discussed, and therefore, the paragraph should not begin to stray. The paragraph should not begin to stray and develop new ideas. If you begin to write a sentence that wander from the paragraph's main idea, then it is time to start a new paragraph. A paragraph should also have what we call coherence. Coherence is more commonly referred to as the flow of your writing. That when a paragraph flows, the reader will be able to understand the main idea that you have presented. How can you ensure that your paragraph maintains a flow? Well, after presenting your main idea in your topic sentence, each sentence following must build upon each other in an organized manner. After writing your paragraph, you need to go back and read aloud what you have written to make sure your ideas are clearly presented. If they are, then you have developed a coherent what? You have developed a coherent paragraph. Then your paragraph should have the topic sentence. The topic sentence is the most important part of your paragraph. It tells the reader the general idea of your paragraphs, and it should essentially hook, right? Hook as in H-O-O-K, then into wanting to read more. The topic sentence helps to provide a general summary for your paragraph, and the reader should encounter the topic sentence and have a general idea of what the paragraph will continue to do, will continue to discuss. And then lastly, your paragraph should have sufficient development. It should have sufficient development. By this, we are saying that the topic sentence is the most important part of your paragraph. It tells the reader the general idea of your paragraphs, and it should essentially hook them into wanting to do what? What am I saying? That a sufficient development, by sufficient development here, we mean that it is essential that this topic be sufficiently developed. The topic of your sentence should be, or rather should be sufficiently developed. It should not limit, it should not, or do not limit yourself to a set of to a certain number of sentences. Yes, your paragraph should not be too short or too long, but it should be an appropriate length to flesh out the entirety of your paragraph's idea. A reader should not be left with the questions after a sufficiently developed paragraph. And in order to achieve this, you can provide examples, cite work, provide necessary definitions, describe, analyze, and organize your ideas. Those are those are the 4 key elements that should be considered when writing a paragraph. Part B, summarize 4 commonly used methods of upward communication in business. Methods of upward communication in business. Which are these methods of upward communication in business or in an organization? So we are talking about methods, we are talking about forms of upward communication in business. You know, the forms of upward or methods of upward communication in business, when we talk about the forms or methods of upward communication in business, or the purpose of upward communication is to provide information to managers from subordinates. Subordinates, for example, can communicate messages and information to the superiors in a number of ways. And, you know, some of the more commonly used methods of upward communication can be what we call memos, reports, complaint and suggestion boxes, open door policy, direct correspondence, counseling, social gatherings, special meetings, periodic interviews, committees, reunion, feedback session, etc. Right? So we can maybe have a discussion of a few of those methods that can be used for upward communication. Number one, having special meetings. Employees may call special meetings to discuss matters of mutual interest with managers. And if these meetings allow for mutual exchange of information, they can be an effective method of upward communication. We can also adopt what we call complaint and suggestions boxes. Complaint and suggestion boxes. That in some organizations, complaint and suggestion boxes are placed at some convenient places. And the employees are encouraged to drop their complaints. Employees are encouraged to do what? The employees are encouraged to drop their complaints or suggestions, if any, into these boxes. The other forms can be, having what we call review and feedback sessions. With the review and the feedback sessions, they can be arranged after the completion of important projects or tasks to learn about the difficulties encountered. And this helps to learn and improve the performance of the organization. We can adopt what we call open door policies. That open door policy provides an informal upward channel. Under this policy, the employees are given a feeling that the manager's doors are always open to them. And whenever they like, they can walk into his room without any hesitation and talk to him about their problems. This system can present distortion by avoiding the chain of communication though it can also result in waste of time for managers. We can use what we call questionnaires and surveys. It's another method, the use of questionnaires and surveys. Managers may obtain information about employee attitudes, morale, views about the organization and the relationships between managers and the subordinates through questionnaires and surveys. We can use what we call reports. Reports are the most frequently used method for upward communication, and the employees here may be required to submit reports about the progress of their work at regular intervals. And the reports may be oral or written, formal or informal, lengthy or short. And then we can also adopt what we call periodical interviews. With the periodical interviews, we can conduct periodical interviews with individuals, and the groups may be arranged systematically and conducted in an informal style. Opinions, views, and attitudes are conveyed to the managers by this channel, right? There are quite a number of these methods that we can talk about. There are quite a number of them. I think we have given more than what the examiner asked for. Part C of question number 7, lastly, assess 6 factors that will contribute to ineffective group communication. Factors that may contribute to ineffective group communication. So we are basically looking at the causes of ineffective group communication, ineffective group communication. What are the causes of ineffective group communication, within what? Within an organization, right? There could be lack of focus, inequality of group members, negativity, lack of cohesion, and a poor leadership, right? These are some of the causes, but then when we talk about ineffective communication in a group, it is poor team communication from lack of trust, respect, commitment, and cooperation. So poor leadership is one of them. As a result of, a group of people lacking somebody to provide leadership and clear objectives, when that group does not have very clear objectives on what, for example, needs to be discussed, where there is limited feedback, where we have demoralized employees, where there is cultural diversity in the workplace, right? These are some of the factors that can contribute to ineffective group communication. That is it as far as the April 2022 paper is concerned. That is what was supposed to be done in the last sitting. And then now we can switch our attention to the pilot paper for December 2021. The pilot paper for December 2021. The pilot paper for December 2021. Question number 1A, identify 6 merits of grapevine communication. Identify the 6 merits of grapevine communication. When you talk about merits here, we are looking at the advantages. We are looking at the advantages or the benefits of what? Grapevine communication. The question that we need to ask ourselves here, what is grapevine communication, or what did we understand by grapevine communication? We did talk about this in the second topic known as, formal and informal communication. Or basically, no, not really, types of communication. The different types of communication. Communication, we said, can either be formal and informal what? Informal communication. And the grapevine here is a type of informal communication. So it is an informal channel of business communication. It is called grapevine because it stretches throughout the organization in all directions, irrespective of the authority levels, right? So the question here is asking about the merits of grapevine communication in an organization. The merits are the advantages, right? Number one, grapevine communication, grapevine channels carry information rapidly. That, for example, as soon as an employee gets to know some confidential information, he becomes inquisitive and passes the details then to his closest friend, who in turn passes it to other, thus it spreads hastily. The managers get to know the reactions of their subordinates on their policies, thus the feedback obtained is quick compared to formal channel of communication. Number three, the grapevine creates a sense of unity among the employees who share and discuss their views with each other. Thus, grapevine helps in developing group cohesiveness. Number four, the grapevine serves as an emotional supportive value. Number five, the grapevine is a supplement in those cases where the formal communication does not do what? Where a formal communication does not work. Where a formal communication does not work. And then part B distinguish between active listening and emphatic listening. Active listening versus emphatic listening. So what is the difference between emphatic listening and active listening? So when we talk about emphatic listening, or rather active listening, active listening includes nonverbal cues that express attentiveness. Active listening includes nonverbal cues that express attentiveness and engagement. Active listening includes nonverbal cues that expresses attentiveness and engagement. For example, head nods, posture, eye contact, and facial expressions fall under this category. More so with our friends and the family, it can be easy to talk to someone while scrolling on your phone, watching a movie or a TV show, or paying attention to something else entirely. Active listening involves echoing the speaker's message back to them. That is paraphrasing or relaying back what the speaker was talking about, shows them you are paying attention and showing interest in what they were saying. Active listening involves asking questions that allow the speaker to go into more detail, right? But then when we talk about emphatic listening, right? Emphatic listening basically involves attempting to understand the feelings and emotions of the speaker, right? It involves attempting to understand the feelings and emotions of the speaker, to put yourself in the speaker's shoes and share their thoughts. Empathy, the word empathy, because we are, from the word empathy, we have empathic. It is a way of deeply connecting with another person, and the therapeutic or empathic listening can be particularly challenging. So empathy is not the same as sympathy. It involves more than being compassionate or feeling sorry for somebody else. It involves a deeper connection, a realization, and understanding of another person's point of what? Of another person's point of view. So we are basically saying that empathic listening is a structured listening and a questioning technique that allows you to develop and enhance relationships with a stronger understanding of what is being conveyed, both intellectually and emotionally, both intellectually and emotionally. And then part C of question one, examine 5 ways in which written communication could be made user-friendly. The different ways in which written communication can be made user-friendly. How to make written communication user-friendly, or sorry, written communication user-friendly. So number one, you need to keep it simple. You need to keep it simple. You need to keep it simple, you know, by using a simple language or a language that is easy to understand. Use the correct tone for your purpose. Use the correct tone for your purpose. Use the correct tone for your purpose. Stay on the topic and keep it concise. Stay on the topic and keep it concise. Stay on the topic and keep it concise. Use active voice. Use active voice. Use active voice. Identify and clearly state your goal. Identify and clearly state your goal. You can have someone to proofread your writing. You can have somebody to proofread your writing. Make it easy to read and scan. You know, you need to be very professional in what you're writing. All these are ways of doing what? Of making written communication effective. In the context of communication process, this is question number 2A. In the context of communication process, define the following terms. Define the following terms. There is what we call encoding. There's what we call encoding. To encode is to turn a message into a series of meaningful words and codes. To encode is to turn a message into a series of meaningful words and codes. And there's encoding means the idea of or the process of converting the idea into words or gestures that will convey meaning. It is converting the idea into words or gestures that will convey meaning, and it consists in changing the information into some form of logical and a coded message. And the encoding process, of course, we had mentioned this, you know, in the introduction to the first topic, introduction to communication. The encoding process is based on the purpose of communication and the relationship between the sender and the receiver. And in a formal situation, encoding involves selecting a language, selecting a medium of communication, and selecting an appropriate communication form. Selecting an appropriate communication form. Then there's what we call decoding. There's what we call decoding. This is translating the message from its sign format, is translating the message from its sign format into meaning. It is translating the message from its sign format into meaning. And it means converting a message into thoughts by translating the received stimuli into an interpreted meaning in order to understand the message communicated. And the process of decoding, we said, involves receiving, interpreting, and understanding an encoded message. In other words, it involves interpretation and analysis of the message. There is what we call feedback. This is the response of a receiver to a message. And it is an indication that communication has taken place successfully or not. It is an indication that the communication has taken place successfully or not. Part B outlines 6 ways through which management could enhance the effectiveness of vertical communication. How to enhance the effectiveness of vertical communication. How 6 ways through which management could enhance the effectiveness of vertical communication. How can we enhance effectiveness of vertical communication? So number one, of course, when we talk about upward communication, is the process in which employees directly communicate with upper management to provide feedback, share ideas, and raise concerns regarding their day-to-day work. And there are different ways in which this can be enhanced. Number one, by building a culture of open communication, building a culture of open communication. By building a culture of open communication. Choosing the right communication mediums, Create channels for employees to express their ideas and concerns. Encourage leaders to be authentic and approachable. Encouraging leaders to be authentic and approachable. The other one will be measuring your employees' engagement. Those are some of the ways, in which upward communication can be enhanced, increasing the employee trust, engaging employees, avoiding crises, improve collaboration. Those are some of the ways in which you can enhance the effectiveness of vertical communication. And then discuss 4 merits of effective listening. Discuss 4 merits of effective listening. The merits of effective listening. What are the merits or the advantages of effective listening? Number 1, effective listening it builds trust and strong relationships. 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 2, active listening can help you to resolve conflict. It can help you to resolve conflict. Number 3, active listening prevents you from missing important information. 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 Active listening enables you to identify or anticipate problems. Active listening enables you to identify or anticipate problems. Active listening enables you to identify or anticipate problems. The other one is that active listening helps you to build more knowledge. It helps you to build more knowledge. The other one is that active listening empowers you as a leader. It empowers you as a leader. Active listening empowers you as a leader. It empowers you as a leader. So those are some of the merits or the advantages of active listening. Question number 3A, highlight 8 benefits of using nonverbal cues in communication. The benefits of using nonverbal cues in communication. Number one, one advantage is complementary. One advantage is complementary. By this we mean that nonverbal cues complement a verbal message by adding to its meaning. For example, you can pat someone you offended at the back as you say sorry to him or her. So it can be used as complementary or to complement. 2, for easy presentation, that information can be easily presented in nonverbal communication through using visual, audio-visual, and a silent means of nonverbal communication. We can use it for substituting. Number 3, substituting nonverbal messages. They substitute for the verbal message especially if it is blocked by noise, interruption, long distance, etc. For example, gestures, finger to lips to indicate need for quiet, facial expressions, a nod instead of a yes, a nod instead of a yes, etc. Number 4, accenting, accenting. Often used to accent a verbal message, verbal tone indicates the actual meaning of specific words. It can be used to repeat the verbal message, e.g. a point in a direction while stating directions. It can be used to help illiterate people, This type of communication uses gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, proximity, touching, etc., and without using any spoken or written word. And so it is very much helpful for illiterate people. It can also be used to make a presentation attractive. Non-verbal communication is based on visual, picture, graph, sign, etc. that can be seen very much attractive. Non-verbal communication is based on visual, picture, graph, sign, etc. that can be seen very much attractive. It helps in reducing wastage of time, that the message of non-verbal communication reaches the receiver very fast, and for this reason, it reduces the wastage of valuable time for the communicator. Analyze 6 essentials of a good business letter. Analyze 6 essentials of a good business letter. The essentials of a good business letter. So when we talk about essentials here, we are looking at the qualities, we are looking at the characteristics of a good business letter. Number 1, a good business letter, or before we talk about those essentials, or we mention those essentials, when we talk about a business letter, you know, it's a means to exchange information in a written form. That is one thing that you need to remember about the business letter. And it is the most formal method of communication in a business relationship. For example, a customer writing a letter to a supplier, a job seeker writing a job application, cover letters are some of the common business letters, letters of inquiry, order letters, business contracts, complaint letters, sell letter, letter of recommendation, and letter of resignation. All come under this category, right? So what are the essentials of a business letter? Number 1, it should be clear. It should be clear. By this, we mean that the language used in the business letter must be clear, as it helps the receiver to understand the message immediately, easily, and clearly. Because any ambiguity here will lead to the misinterpretation of the message stated. Other than being clear, it should be simple, that the language used in the business letter must be simple and easy. One must not write a business letter in a difficult and fancy words. The other one is that it should be concise. It should be concise. The message written in the letter must be concise and to the the message written must be concise and to the point. It should be concrete. Is another essential. It should be concrete. The message written must be concrete and specific. By using concrete language, a reader will have a clear picture of the message. It must be accurate. It must be accurate. That one must always check for the accuracy of the business letter. Accuracy generally means no error in grammar, spelling, punctuations, etc. Correct personnel should be targeted for communication. The other one is that it should be coherent. It should be coherent. It should be coherent. That the language used in the business letter must be coherent. The message must be in a logical way for the clear understanding of the message. The flow of the message must be consistent. The other one is that it must be complete. That one must write a complete message as it helps the reader to know about the issue and the solution to be taken. It should provide all the necessary information. One must also keep in mind that the message should be concise and short, along with the complete details. The other one is relevancy. Relevance, that the letter should only contain important information. Irrelevant information should not be included and avoided in any business communication. It should be courteous. The language used in the business letter must be courteous. The writer must always use open, friendly, and honest wording in his letter. And it does not mean that one must use slang and abusive words. One must always add the words like please, thank you, etc. The other one, it should be neat. A business letter must be neatly typed or handwritten. Proper spacing, indentation, and the use of paragraph should be used. Those are some of the essentials of a business letter. And I think we are going to pick up from there tomorrow. Tomorrow will be our next and the last lesson. Will be our last lesson for the semester. So we'll try to finish up the questions that are remaining on that paper. And I think we can also be able to touch on the paper that was done on December 2021 as well. So we call it a day and we stop there.